The cost of ordinary shares, capital asset pricing model. We'll begin by looking at the components of expected return. The first component is the risk-free rate of interest. We would expect to earn at least the risk-free rate of interest on any risky investment. Otherwise, we would just invest in a risk-free asset. But on top of the risk-free rate, we expect a risk premium, extra return, to compensate for risk. Let's look a little more deeply into what makes up this risk premium. The amount of extra return that we should get is equal to the amount of systematic risk times the price of systematic risk. In other words, given the amount of systematic risk, how much extra return do we get per unit of systematic risk? Obviously, the higher the amount of systematic risk, the greater the risk premium. But in addition, the greater the extra return that you should get per unit of risk will also increase the expected return. We already have a way to measure the amount of systematic risk. We use beta. So the risk premium will be equal to beta times the extra return or risk premium that we should expect per unit of beta. We can use the market portfolio to help us work out how much extra return we should get given the level of systematic risk. Given that the market has a beta of 1, it's logical that the extra return that the market gets over and above the risk-free rate, the risk premium for the market, must be the amount of extra risk we get for a beta of 1. Before we proceed any further, we'll start to convert the words in this diagram to mathematical terms so that at the end of the day we can construct a formula for expected return. So instead of the words expected return, we use E of Ri, the expected return on share I. We'll use Rf for the risk-free rate, and we'll use beta I to represent the beta for share I. If the amount of extra return or risk premium that we should get per unit of beta is equal to the risk premium for the market, then we can express that as the expected return on the market minus the risk-free rate of return. We now have all the components we need to construct a formula for the expected return on a share. The expected return from share I is equal to the risk-free rate of return plus the share's beta times the expected return on the market minus the risk-free rate of return. Before we move on to an example using this formula, it's important that we are very careful about the terminology that we use. Remember that the expected return on any investment is the risk-free rate of return plus a risk premium to compensate for risk. The risk premium is composed of the amount of risk, here represented by beta, and the extra return that we should get per unit of beta, for which we've decided to use the extra return that the market gets. Therefore, this term, the expected return on the market minus the risk-free rate of return, is what we call the market risk premium. Shares in CPM Limited have a beta of 1.95, the market risk premium is 7%, and the risk-free rate of return is 3%. What is the cost of ordinary shares based on the CAPM? We take the risk-free rate of return, 3% or 0.03, plus beta, 1.95, times the market risk premium, which is everything inside the brackets, or 7%, 0.07.